Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and in today's show we'll be discussing two topics that are very important regarding Pakistan. And in the first segment we'll be talking about the war against terror that Pakistan has been undertaking, and of course in that regard we know that the terror attacks in Waziristan and the surge in the terror attacks all over the country and the recent attempts by the terrorist elements in different to carry out the attacks in different districts of Balochistan, which was foiled by the security forces by their timely action, and they thwarted these nefarious designs which were to cause civilian casualties and of course damage to the security institutions as well, and the loss of lives. And of course in that regard there was strong condemnation from the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, from the President Asif Ali Zardari, from the Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi and the Chief Minister Balochistan, along with all the other political leadership of the country. In that regard, the Interior Minister also visited Balochistan, and the Prime Minister is due to visit Balochistan soon, as stated by the Deputy Prime Minister Ishtiaq Dar. And in regards to that, the Prime Minister also gave a statement in the cabinet meeting yesterday where he vowed to crush the terrorist elements that were ruining and spoiling the peace and security environment of the country, as the government is they're putting a lot in effort for economic revival and to put Pakistan on the path of economic prosperity. In that regard, there are many reforms that the government is undertaking, such as the establishment of the SIFC to increase foreign direct investment in the country, and of course to strengthen the public-private partnership as well, and how the government is focused on the reforms in the economic policies as well. So the tax net could be increased and to provide better opportunities to the youth of the country and all the investors that want to take advantage of the potential that Pakistan has to offer. In that regard, the terror attacks that were held out across the country and a subsequent the timely response by the security forces, but the terror incidents were condemned by all the international quarters, such as the United Nations chief, United States of America, China, the European Union countries as well. And if we talk about the counter-terrorism operation, Pakistan had earlier launched Operation Ahmad-security, which focuses on intelligence-based operations throughout the country. In that regard, an IBO was conducted yesterday in Tira Valley of Khyber district, in which 25 Fitna al-Khawarij were dispatched to hell. The rise in terror attacks we're witnessing as Pakistan focuses on the policies which would put the Pakistan on the path of economic progress, and there's efforts for regional connectivity as well, but we're seeing that these spoilers of peace, they are carrying out with the nefarious designs to spoil this peaceful and business-friendly environment. With regards to the second topic, we'll be talking about the traders' strike and the government widening the tax net as part of their efforts for tax reforms in the country. In that regard, nationwide shutter-down strike was announced by the trader community of the country, and this strike was to be held in major cities such as Karachi, Lahore, Faisalabad, Multan and Islamabad. We'll be discussing both these topics in detail in today's show. In the studios, we've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi. Along with that, we've been joined by geopolitical analyst Faisal, and on Skype, we have been joined by Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik. Thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation. I'll move towards Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik to start off our conversation. In regards to the first topic, Pakistan's war against terror. So in the cabinet meeting, the Prime Minister said yesterday and gave a very strong message to all the militant outfits, to all the banned terrorists in the country, and said that no soft approach would be taken and called for their complete crushing. And of course, this comes as the government is putting in a lot of efforts for business and to create a conducive business and trade environment, and efforts for regional connectivity are also underway. How would you comment on the situation at the moment and the government's policies as they're going to take a more aggressive approach as coming from the Prime Minister's statement yesterday?
I think, first of all, we must see what are the environment where these activities are taking place, and what possible objectives could be of the terrorists and their handlers and their sponsors. As we know, Pakistan has just been, on the. Uh, we have been through an economic meltdown, and now, after applying, mid-course corrections, we are struggling for economic revival and for, our completion of certain projects as regards CPEC is concerned. So, in this background, this sudden rise in terrorist activities, the surge, particularly in Balochistan areas, it is you know, it really gives very credible leads, wherein we can conclude that it's not a homegrown uh, anti-state activity, but it's a foreign-sponsored, footprint that can be, substantiated with, circumstantial evidence. And what they want to do, they want to discredit the law enforcement agencies who are trying to maintain, security in these areas, the far-flung areas, and who wants to give, a sigh of relief or comfort to general public that we are here to protect you. So going for the soft targets like just offloading passengers from buses and then uh, trying to give an impression of an ethnic biased killings uh, eh, of the soft targets who are the poor innocent civilians. That clearly reflect that the handlers and sponsors of these terrorists, they have only one objective, and that is to stall the economic revival of Pakistan, to create instability through this, economic turmoil, and to discredit the security operators and challenge the writ of the state to continue with an uncertain environment wherein we don't get any foreign investment, or we could not, you know, uh, progress further to pursue our objectives as far as the economic revival for Pakistan is concerned.
Right. Thank you for the insights and your valuable contribution to the topic. Air Vice Marshal retired Ajaz Malik, senior analyst. Thank you for your time and being part of the conversation. Moving on towards Farrukh Pitafi, I'd like to ask him what he thinks regarding the security situation in the country and, of course, the government's statement that we saw from the Prime Minister yesterday in the cabinet meeting, how he said to crush the terror elements completely. What kind of an approach do you think the government should go for, considering that these terror, these spoilers of peace, how they are ruining the conducive, business-friendly environment that the government is very hardly trying to ensure?
Right, Rafae, thank you very much for the question. First of all, let me echo what AVM Saab was actually saying about the heroism on display by our law enforcement and our soldiers, because it is very easy to forget that we are enjoying all the luxuries of life and discomfort of going back to our homes, because these soldiers, these heroes are out there protecting us, and every day they are laying down their lives for the motherland as well. So we should remember who are the good guys, who are our heroes, and who should be celebrated. Having said that, now let us talk about the various aspects of counter terrorism strategy. I think Pakistan's National Action Plan, and especially the revised National Action Plan that was actually presented in 2021, lays out the entire story very clearly. What needs to be done, what are the areas that have to be taken care of. We have to look at the kinetic aspects as well in Balochistan, particularly because there are hideouts where these elements might be hiding, and from whence they come and they attack. So they will have to be a very targeted, focused, surgical, IBOs or operation, or call it whatever you want. But apart from that, there is another very important aspect, and that is regarding financial resources given to these elements, and whosoever is actually providing them the kind of finances that are there. My concern has been, and yesterday something was said, so I went and double checked it. Yesterday it was mentioned that cryptocurrency could also be used. So the humble submission is because it takes 3 or 4 steps for cryptocurrency to actually transfer in that manner, which is in Pakistan, which is traceable. If there is some kind of inflow of money, and then of course it has to go to some kind of banking channel, so that is not possible. These people are getting money from the old school methods. So the first thing that is important, apart from the kinetic side, is to ensure that monies are dried up, these people don't get it. And finally, then of course, once you have taken care of all the terrorists, you have removed them. If there is any kind of discomfort or unease, of course, surgery needs some kind of removing of tissue. So then you reach out and you mollify the people. But first kinetic, second economic, and the third one is actually mollifying. And fourth is regarding the counter-terrorism narrative, because somehow, despite having 60 channels or more, our news media is totally devoid of any national character, so to speak, regarding counter-terrorism. They, instead of being the state's, a force multiplier, they end up being the force multiplier of the enemy. Why should that be?
Definitely, that's a very important point that was raised. And Raja Faisal, I'd like a comment from you as well, but we've been joined by a security analyst, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, and to include him in the conversation as well. Sir, how would you comment as the Prime Minister yesterday in the cabinet meeting, he vowed to crush the terror elements, and there's ongoing efforts. Yesterday, an intelligence-based operation was conducted in Tira Valley. How important and how crucial do you think it would be to focus on cross-border influences and movements at the moment as well? Because earlier it was reported that the Pakistan armed forces, they neutralized terrorists trying to infiltrate Pakistan from the Afghanistan border.
Well, you see, the thing is, it is the responsibility of the government in power currently to take care of this issue. We cannot leave this thing again and again upon the armed forces. Of course, armed forces are the first line of defense. They defend the country from internal and external dangers. But I think the primary responsibility lies with the civilian government here in Pakistan. They should own, this task, and they should deliver this task in a very responsible manner. There are a host of law enforcement and intelligence outfits at their disposal, and I think we have seen time and again that this responsibility somehow is, shifted to the armed forces. Of course, when it comes to kinetic operations, they should undertake. But I think this is a wholesome governmental approach, and the primary responsibility lies with the government in power. Number two, and I would like this, issue to raise this issue before the panel tonight. You see, these guys who come here to Islamabad and they, in Balochistan, they come out, hold rallies for the missing persons in Balochistan. Well, what we have seen in the last 2 days, especially, the day before yesterday, the kind of mayhem and tragedy that we have witnessed, unarmed civilians being, asked to come out of the buses, and then they are being shot dead without any fault. This is pure and simple terrorism. You see, the thing is, we have to draw a distinction, although, there are many forms and manifestations of terrorism. TTP, for example, their proclaimed goal is to have their kind of system that they want to install. But these BLA and other organizations, They are separatists. They want to create another country out of Pakistan. So this is much more deadly, and I'm amazed at the silence of these guys who take out rallies and then they say that, the missing persons. Well, we have right before our eyes tens of, thousands of people have been killed, and recently you see dozens of people, innocent people from other provinces being killed, in broad daylight. And these guys who proclaim, human rights and all that, where are they? Why are they not protesting? Why are they not taking out rallies? Who is killing them? Who is killing our innocent people? So this is a point I just want to lay down, that the separatists who want to create another country out of Pakistan, are killing and, maiming families here. And there is no protest here, by the very people who are the champion of human rights. Where are they?
Very important point that you raised, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed. And Raja Faisal, I'd like a comment from you regarding the propaganda and the anti-state elements that further propagate this propaganda.
Yes, Rafae, obviously, when we talk about, I'm glad that Dr. Ishtiaq has highlighted this, that where are them people who were coming on the roads and, of course, seeking to know whereabouts of the people who were the missing people. I mean, missing people in past, we have many examples, people who were declared as missing people and whose sympathizers, they were on the road saying that, oh, they are missing people. They were the very people who were involved in these kind of activities, and wherever they were getting killed while doing something, of course, then they would simply appear that this man who has been a missing person for like 3-4 years, suddenly he pops up and conducts an activity, terrorist activity in Pakistan. And this is what has been happening, and all of these people who are coming on the roads and of course seeking to know about the whereabouts of them people, to me they are sympathizers of the terrorism which is going on. First of all, Rafae, when we talk about this very incident and the incidents that taken place previously in Balochistan, I mean, I have been seeing that since yesterday there were campaigns going on related to this, that somehow the Baloch people are actually killing the Punjabi people. This is not the case, and we shouldn't be perceiving it like this. It was entirely no Baloch, no Punjabi, no Pashtun. We shouldn't be taking it like that. Rather, it was the Pakistanis who were getting killed by the terrorists, and those terrorists, they are of course being funded, and their numbers are 1,500 as rightly pointed out by Farrukh yesterday. 1,400 and 1,500 numbers of Majid brigades and BLAs. They are the ones who are involved in these things, and they are typically terrorists who are getting fundings and who are getting arms. Of course, the major source of its facilitation is sitting in Afghanistan, and we know that in past Iranian province of Sistan, that had a lot to do with the BLA and BLF. Now, if we take the example of Afghanistan, why I say Afghanistan, and in our program, I mean even last year I highlighted this issue that was related to NDS, National Directorate for Security. It is an intelligence service of the previous Afghan regime, the Ghani regime, and of course the Karzai regime. They have been relying on this. Amrullah Saleh was known to be the chief of NDS, and the mind and doctrine behind it. Amrullah Saleh had excellent relation with the Indian RAW, and Indian RAW even wanted Amrullah Saleh to replace Ghani, and Ghani regime was to be replaced by Amrullah Saleh because he was the man for RAW at that time. There are 3 places, Lajpat Nagar, Bhogal and Malvi Nagar. These 3 places in the, of course, vicinity of New Delhi, where there are more than 15,000 Afghan immigrants who are settled, and according to my knowledge, which I highlighted last year as well, more than 5,000 of them, they are directly connected to NDS. and majority of them, they were the very people who were actually trained in India by Raw, and they were the very people who had their source plantation on ground. And we remember that right after Taliban took over, suddenly Taliban when announced that whoever wants to join us and to of course safeguard Afghanistan and for the better of Afghanistan, they will welcome them. And majority of them NDS people, they actually put on the turbans and grew the beards and suddenly said, here we are Taliban as well. Who knows, the very people, NDS people, are still working for Raw, are still working hand and glove with Raw to destabilize Pakistan, to destabilize Pakistan's economic endeavors, along with destabilize China's economic endeavors as well when it comes to CPAC. So this has been taking place, and this angle must be looked into. How many NDS people joined at that time when Taliban took over, and within Taliban's ranks, whether if the presence is still there, is there a mechanism which is being applied by Taliban regime to figure out if they have these kind of intruders who were once NDS and still are holding the NDS agenda in the guise of Taliban, and of course their activities are still carrying on against Pakistan. Why I'm saying this? Because when we of course explore what kind of weapons these terrorists are using in Pakistan, well, we come across the very weapons which were left by the Americans in Afghanistan, and one by one the caches of it, the godowns of it, they were being discovered, and all of these weapons, they kept on being sold to these terrorists, and them very weapons are being used in Pakistan. And I think this is the time that deep figure out that needs to be conducted, and IBOs, they need to not only contain themselves within the borders, but the IBOs need to be of course carried out across the border as well, because this is a serious threat to Pakistan, be it BLA, PLF or TTP. All of them, they need to be countered. If not available in Pakistan, then if they have to get into across the border, do it.
Right, that's a very important point that Raja Faisal just made, and point registered. Of course, Farrukh Pitafi, I'd like your comment as well, because what Raja Faisal mentioned, the approach, the hardline approach that needs to be taken for the terrorists. Farrukh Pitafi, I'd also like your comment, and especially your comment regarding the propagandists that are within the country trying to share sympathies with the terror elements by using the garb of enforced disappearances. I'd also like your comment on how they're propagating anti-state activities and their anti-state narrative, especially when terrorism is an issue of national security and not just for Pakistan but a regional issue at the moment.
Right. Thank you very much. I thought that perhaps you're going to go to Dr. Saab.
I'll take his own.
Yeah, of course. Very quickly, I'm just going to answer this, but then you can go to him, and of course, I have more to add. But regarding, this propaganda, I call it the obfuscation industry. I think that since 9/11 happened and Pakistan joined the war on terror, since then we have seen many dog and pony shows. For example, in the start, when Pakistan was fighting only elements like TTP and it was supporting the international effort in Afghanistan, there mysteriously started appearing people who would actually regale you with their sad stories on television. In the end, everybody found out that most of them were actually in Afghanistan fighting from the Taliban side. So similarly in Balochistan also, we have seen what exactly has been going on, and all these elements, for example, the leader of this protest that continues, sometimes they are in Islamabad, sometimes they are elsewhere. She is on record when Pakistan struck back in Iran. At that time, she said that many of the families are sitting here with us in the protest of the people who were killed there. I mean, this is on record. What does that mean? What are you protesting? If they are missing, That means their their enforced disappearance has been caused by the government of Pakistan. Then what were they doing in Iran?
Yeah.
Right? What were they doing in Afghanistan? So I think at this moment, the first thing is that now that you have actually faced so much the bloodshed, you have to ensure that you stop listening to all the obfuscation and decide where you have to hit the terrorist hard. Once you have cleared everything up, then you can build confidence at the local level as well. You can have economic activities too. In Balochistan, the biggest problem, Rafae, is that the state of Pakistan is really is in a kind of difficult position. Why? Because when you actually want to offer the solutions, who are the people who are going to be the recipients? They're the same Sardar whose supporters these people are and who are protesting. And most of that money goes to Sardars instead of going to the common man on the street. So first of all, decide for once how to reform the province and what to do with the terrorists. I say hit them hard because they are hitting you hard. And no country, trust me, had it been happening in America, had it been happening in UK now, they would have sorted out such elements without any kind of reluctance. So why are we actually so confused?
Yeah.
Right. In regards to that, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, I'd also like your comment. Considering when we talk about terrorism and we go in depth about it, there's the one spoiler in the region that promotes this instability and wants to ruin the peace and stable environment of the region at large because of their hegemonic designs. In regards to that, when we talk about a regional concerted effort to curb that certain players' nefarious designs, do you think there should be more work done on intelligence and tech sharing between all the stakeholders in the region to curb that certain players' nefarious designs?
You see, like when it comes to extremism and terrorism, I think all the countries have a shared interest, except a couple of like countries in our neighborhood. One obviously is India. They have long been portraying Kashmir as an issue of terrorism, although it is an issue which is related to the unsettlement of, the non-resolution of UN Security Council resolutions, in the past 75 years. In Afghanistan, we have had, a complex relationship all along in the last 40 plus years. But again and again, like even if we play our part in stabilizing the situation, then a threat continues to recur. We had issues with Iran, and I think thankfully that our leadership at the highest level interacted and we resolved these issues. So the problem is primarily inside and it is being exploited by outside, as simple as that. And I would like to, rather in a less emotive manner, I would like to draw this distinction once again, and I think I would like Farrukh to further comment on it. When we talk about missing persons, there is an element of uncertainty. A person who is missing, she or he can return any time. A missing person is a missing person. But when in terrorism, 40 people die in broad daylight, this is pure and simple a fact. So you cannot, compare a fact with something which is uncertain. My point is this. So those, organizations and individuals who are creating a human rights situation in the name of missing persons. And I think they are misleading the people at home and they are misleading the people outside Pakistan. I think this is a disservice, in the name of human rights that has been taking place. And I think it needs to be pinpointed. Of course, Pakistan has sailed through many challenges like this before. And 10 years from now, 20 years from now, inshallah, we will sail through all these difficulties. But I think we need to gear up both at the governmental level, at the public level. Of course, the armed forces are always there to defend the frontiers of this country and the homeland from inside.
That's how it should be, and of course, as said no dialogue with the terrorists, of course, because they don't act on any agenda except disrupting and creating chaos for humanity. With that regards, Raja Faisal, I'd like your concluding remarks on the topic as well, considering the concerted efforts and how there's international condemnation by the international community, by the world community, from the United States, United Nations chief, the EU countries. In regards to that, do you think there should be more done than condemnation, such as providing and helping Pakistan in its counterterrorism efforts, rather than just condemning the acts of violence that are perpetrated here?
Yeah, Rafae, that's what I had in my mind to, of course, say, and we have, of course, yesterday mentioned it, and day before yesterday as well. There is something called, of course, tech transfer. If you really believe that that you are standing with Pakistan, and if you are to help Pakistan in this, to eradicate this menace and to defend Pakistan against this menace of terrorism, which was being faced by the very countries in past. I mean, European Union countries, if we talk about US, of course, they have been fighting this war, and they left Pakistan once more. I mean, they gave no regard to the sort of Pakistan's assistance in war against terror, and once they left, they never looked back. Same like the previous time when they left, they didn't look back. And once more, I think the mere words won't do anything. Tech transfer is something which is required. Of course, Pakistan can further improve its IBOs through the tech transfer, and to improve Pakistan's intelligence services and Pakistan's intelligence capabilities in coming days. I'm not saying that we have lesser capabilities, but there are certain ways which are being applied by the Western countries, and they are more sort of effective ways. And I think Pakistan must seek that from them. And when it comes to, of course, this war, there must be a realization by the very organizations and the countries, the Western countries, that it is not only Pakistan's war which is being fought by Pakistan at this hour. It is their war as well. Why? Because we shouldn't be forgetting that Afghanistan is the very country where the terrorists, they've been getting trained, and they were carrying out their activities in the Western countries in past. If they want a complete full stop to that menace, then of course they have to come up with these kind of assistance for Pakistan and Pakistan security services, and so that Pakistan can effectively, more effectively, can fight against this menace. And I'm glad that at this hour, after this incident, there were condemnation from the Western countries and all of the important countries and organizations. But there is a sentence which was repeatedly said to Pakistan in past, saying do more. Now I would require from the very organizations and the very Western countries, do more. You need to do more when it comes to, of course, fighting against terrorism, because this is a menace that had some sort of contribution from your side as well, and this is the hour. Pakistan is fighting against it, and you need to do more than merely the statements and the words.
Definitely. In regards to that, for Pitafi, I'd also like your concluding remarks on how the international community can actually do more than, rather than just condemning these acts of terror incidents.
Right. I think that first of all, it is a good start that a Committee of Nations, we call it Committee of Nations, right, is condemning it. Of course, there's one country which is evidently not part of Committee of Nations, and that is India. India did not condemn it. So, of course, that means that you are actually in cahoots with the terrorist. It is almost a certainty, right? And then, of course, regarding the weapons that Faisal was talking about, the smart weapons, which were essentially with the Afghan security forces, the national security forces, and then they ended up with Afghan Taliban, and from there they ended up with so many other elements. I think one aspect is very important. many of them, especially the heavy machinery, is smart machinery. So it is very easy to deactivate it. The first urge is to actually deactivate it remotely if possible by the West. Then we will see where else we can go. Regarding all these elements, I think there is another thing which is very important in Afghanistan, because Afghan Taliban have adopted this new old code of piety, where women are now totally banned from everything. So they have actually dug the hole deeper for themselves already, or the entire world is on their case. Regarding other things that Faisal was saying, and there was a distinction that Dr. Saab made. Let me talk about the Dr. Saab's distinction, especially regarding missing persons, and that's true. I think most of them are not technically missing people, they are unaccounted people, right? Because missing would essentially mean that somebody was responsible. But it seems we have been given repeated presentations by the Commission that actually oversees that. The first thing is the number is really bloated, exaggerated. The total number, I think, has been shrunk down to a very small number. And then most of them are either in Afghanistan, in Iran, or then on mountains. So with that kind of a situation, you have to understand that it might be a smoke screen, right? So technically, I think that distinction stands. Regarding what Faisal was saying, NDS and all, I had a long story to tell, and there was a lot that I wanted to, I've been bursting to say. I've been saying many things in the past 2 weeks. So today, I got a very beautiful message from somebody very powerful. And I was told that every concern that I have raised has been taken into account. It is being investigated. Most of it is actually corroborated as well. So just don't hurt yourself by actually repeating yourself ad nauseum. You relax, and we are actually going to take care of it. So I'm not satisfied that all those concerns will be taken care of, especially this India's nexus, the way it actually exploits Pakistan's fault lines, and it further creates as well. It means there are people who are inside the country also who might be helping them. So with all those concerns, actually another freebie was that I was told that all my expectations from everything that might be deprived opportunities are going to be met now as well. So I'm very happy. I'm not going to dispute what Faisal said. My entire opinion, whole spectrum, is in public, or on public record, in my columns, on my shows, in my vlogs. So that's it.
Right. Of course, we're glad that things are on such a positive note, and of course those concerns are being addressed. With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed for your valuable contributions to the topic, and of course the insights that you provided us today. And of course, with that, we'll wrap up the first topic and move towards the second topic, where we'll be talking about the traders' strike that has been held nationwide. And of course, in regards to that, major cities of the country, Karachi, Lahore, Faisalabad, Multan, and the federal capital, Islamabad. And this shutdown strike comes in light of the government's tax reforms and efforts to increase tax revenue. And the FBR chief, Rashid Mahmood, expressed willingness to resolve concerns, but stated that the Tajir Dose scheme would not be withdrawn, which focuses on registering all the vendors and retailers of the country and bringing them into the tax net. Raja Faisal, I'd like your comment with regards to the crucial tax reforms that the government is undertaking. How could the trader community contribute to these tax reforms? Because and in these times when we're seeing so much reforms being taken for economic prosperity, and cooperation is needed by the domestic consumers and the sellers, retailers as well. How do you comment on that, and how do you think that the government can streamline these people into the tax net?
Yeah, Rafae, obviously there are certain things which are misunderstood by the traders themselves, and now one by one, of course, they are further understanding it, And when it comes to, their right to protest, of course, they have a right to protest and they have protested. And at the same time, we know that the government, government authorities, they have contacted them, and I think that's how it should be. Whenever there is someone who has problems with the policies, of course, they can seek someone to, of course, give them clarity on it, and to sit with them to negotiate further amendments if they can be made. And that is what we are seeing, that FBR, it is coming with some amendments, and I think they still need to be sitting with the traders and to further make them understand why it is necessary. And Rafae, we always talk about the tax net. Of course, Pakistan needs to increase its tax net, and I think I always maintained it that whenever this increase in the tax net would take place, of course there would be few quarters amongst us who would not be liking these ideas, because somehow tax is something, very few they are willing to give. But at the same time, I think it is time for them to realize that as well, that the tax is going to be utilized on their well-being, on of course certain things that matter a lot.
And it is their responsibility as well.
It's their responsibility.
As a citizen of Pakistan.
And I think it's a good step forward. Need to sit with them, the government needs to sit with them and further negotiate, and I think come up with the best solutions, and this is how the country should move.
Right. Farrukh, Pitafi, I'd like your comments as well. Considering that in a situation where the government wants to increase the tax net to better focus on the economic policies and to make them better and more effective, with regards to that, how do you see the demands by the trader community of the country in such times when there's so much efforts for economic reforms being undertaken by the government?
Right. While you were talking about all this, I was transported back to two seminal incidents in my life, right? One was the day when Pakistan detonated its nukes. And I remember that the first group of people who were celebrating those things were traders in Pakistan. And they came out and they were celebrating. So they pride themselves on their patriotism, right? But then there's this difficulty that I see. One of the earliest reports that I made for television, of course I used a report before that as well, but for television, was General Musharraf's attempt to bring the trader community into tax net, and I'm talking about year 2000. So this is 2024, 24 years ago, right? And we have repeatedly seen this vicious cycle, that these patriots refuse to become part of national tax net, and that is not acceptable. Pakistan has one of the largest informal economy sectors, right? You need to document everybody. Of course, there is some concern regarding the modality of the tax, because instead of focusing on income, which could be actually had or evaluated through automation or other softwares, right, integration system, we have chosen to actually evaluate it through the property size. So that becomes a problematic thing. But one thing is for sure, the new leadership of FBR, that I know, the very smart man, very gifted person, I think that he will be able to restructure or find a solution which is acceptable to both. But if the trader community thinks that with the kind of temper tantrum they threw today, if that is going to work, they need to smell coffee.
Definitely. Very rightly put, and of course at that note we'd like to conclude the debate for today. Of course, thank you Senior Analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Geopolitical Analyst Raja Faisal, both of you, for your time and for your valuable insights to both the topics. And today we discussed the war against terrorism and Pakistan's efforts in the war against terrorism, and secondly we discussed the traders' strike and the government's efforts for widening the tax net. We'll see you same time tomorrow in the debate. Till then, take care.